You will never be pretty enough. Not you, not me, no model or celebrity or Greek statue is ever going to be pretty enough. This might seem a little conceited coming from somebody who some might consider as conventionally attractive. Some, a lot of people. Hello and welcome to the first episode of a new podcast I'm having on my channel called Beautifully Nuanced, wherein I talk about the various topics that I'm interested in and have a lot of thoughts on and would like to discuss. I sort of want this to feel like you're having like a sleepover with one of your friends and you're like having one of those like intellectual and deep like late night talks with them where you either talk about like your own like experiences or like your thoughts and opinions on like the world around you, and there is such a spectrum of human emotions and human experiences that I would love to explore through this podcast. So here I present to you Beautifully Nuanced. Okay, so the topic that we have for today is basically about beauty standards. The reason why this topic was brought to me in the first place is New Year's just came in, Christmas recently happened. I'm filming this around mid January, so perhaps by the time that you watch this, it has been a month since Christmas. But the Christmas season is relatively fresh, and usually during Christmas season, you are likely to be visiting a lot of relatives. And the titas and titos. Oh my gosh, the marites. Usually, during this time, when you are around a lot of relatives, a lot of very opinionated people, it is kind of like a canon event. It's kind of like a requirement at this point that every time you attend some sort of family reunion or Christmas party, you are going to get criticized by some sort of relative. They'll give you some sort of like body shaming comment, they'll give a backhanded compliment, they'll criticize you for whatever it may be, anything under the roof. It's not even just limited to your physical appearance, it could be just your existence as a person, your academics, like your love life. They'll like criticize you no matter what. A very common comment that you are likely to get from relatives, especially if you're Filipino, is that you are either commented on your weight, your skin, your looks entirely. So, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that. I'll give like a short description or like a short history of my experience in terms of my bodily insecurities. The thing is, a lot of the times I hear that people usually start gaining body insecurities while they are going through puberty. So around for women, it's around ages like 12, around ages 12, 11, 12 onwards. Basically, the period going into teenhood. The thing is, for me, I was more so criticized on my looks at an earlier age than that. This could be true for other women as well. Let me know if ever that's like the case for you. But I am a very skinny person. Like, I'm a very aware of that. Don't worry, I don't have some sort of like eating disorder, or I don't have or like a health problem in terms of like my weight. I just like I'm a skinny person. The thing is, growing up, I was constantly like body shamed like while I was like in the ages of like around the age of 6 or 7. When I was around the ages of 6 or 7, I developed a lot of bodily insecurities, and it was sort of instilled onto me that I was too skinny. And the thing is, I would constantly get compared to my cousins who were also who were relatively older than me by like a couple years, like 3 or 4 years and stuff. Like my body, I noticed my body would constantly get like compared to them in a way and say like, oh, Largis, you should like eat a little bit so that you have like a little bit of flesh like your cousins and stuff like that. So a lot of the times when I was younger, I would constantly compare my like 7-year-old body to like models in their 20s. And since I like my blueprint basically of what an ideal body type is was basically like my older cousin. So obviously since they're going through puberty, they're going to be like more developed in terms of like how their body is presented. And it's kind of fucked up to think about that as a kid, cuz like why was I comparing my 7-year-old body to like a Victoria's Secret supermodel or like to like 25-year-old celebrities? There was this like idea that was like instilled upon me when I was younger that, oh, you can achieve this body type. Like you, like it's possible for you to be able to like to have the same body type as your cousins because they have more flesh on them. So like they're all, it's like just eat. A common thing that I would notice with a lot of the body shaming comments that relatives would give you is that they would show you of a shortcoming that you have in terms of your appearance. So in my case, it was like I'm too skinny. But then they would give you like a sliver amount of hope and say like, oh, it's definitely possible for you to achieve the body type that your other cousins have. You just have to eat a little bit. I noticed like it just made me have like a really bad relationship with food. It's not an eating disorder such as like bulimia or anorexia because I didn't like purposefully starve myself or like purge out the food that I would eat. It's actually quite the opposite. I tried to force myself to eat more, even though like a lot of the times I would get full really fast. And it just made me just view food as some sort of chore or like some sort of milestone that I had to do throughout the day instead of like actually like food that I could enjoy. I remember when I was like younger, like it was constantly like instilled upon me, like eat faster, eat faster. Because if you eat slower, your metabolism gets fast. Your metabolism is faster, I think, or something like that. They say like, oh, eat faster so that you can like eat more and like you'll gain weight and stuff like that. They would constantly say that to me. And the thing is, I'm a very slow eater because I have like a sensitive gag reflex, but yeah, that's a kind of TMI. And whenever I would like be eating alone, I would be told to eat fast like so often to the point where even now, whenever I would be eating alone, whenever I hear somebody come into the room or if I see somebody come into the room, I automatically jolt up and I like take a bite of my food. Or like whenever like somebody sort of like looks at me or looks at my food, I sort of have this like automatic reaction wherein I'm like, oh, I have to take a bite of my food now, even though I'm not yet done like eating. Like I have to like eat. It just became this like habit of mine, even until now. The thing is, in terms of my body, as time went on, when I got older, people started to like sort of idolize my body type. So in terms of like when I was younger, they would body shame me for being skinny, and then when I got older, I started getting praise for being skinny, which sort of falls into the beauty standard that we have today, or the beauty standard that we always had. Um, in the media. When I got older, since my body image was already fucking ruined at that point, when I got older, there was this like weird like shift in terms of the reactions I would get to how I looked and with my body. So it felt like really weird to me that before I would get like really criticized for being skinny and like being constantly told that I should change it, and then eventually being praised for like, oh, I'm skinny, and then like the titas would call me sexy and stuff like that. Another thing that I was really insecure about before was in terms of my skin. When I was younger, actually until now, I have eczema or like skin asthma. So when I was growing up, I constantly had rashes all over my body, especially on like the back of my knees, on my elbows. I had it like eczema around my mouth area. And I remember that I was always like super insecure about that. I was brought to a lot of like dermatologists when I was younger to like try and like fix the problem that is my skin. The thing with eczema is that shit stings. It hurts like a motherfucker. Like when you take a shower, it will like when you put on soap, it will sting. As I got older, I sort of got used to the pain. I sort of got used to like the stinging and stuff. So, it doesn't bother me as much now, but like I just like learned to live with it. But the thing with eczema is, while it is like very physically painful, the reason for concern from my parents wasn't necessarily because it caused me physical pain. It was because of cosmetic reasons. It was because of how eczema looks. The reason why they tried to treat my eczema so bad wasn't necessarily because it caused me physical pain and like it actually stings to the fucking bone. It was because it wasn't seen as flawless, or like my skin had blemishes on it and it was ugly to look at. Basically, that is something that is connected to a lot of like the bodily insecurities that exist in today's society. People will try to frame being healthy and working out with and like skincare and stuff like that to you taking care of yourself and your health. But in reality, subconsciously, it's because you want to look a certain way. Because there's a certain way that looks healthy. It's not actually in terms of whether you are healthy body wise or like whether or not your body is functioning well. It's more so fitting the idea of what is quote unquote healthy to look at. So the concern in terms of like, oh, you should eat, you're really skinny, or like you should lose weight because you're obese. In reality, most of the time, it's not actually because they care about your health itself. It's more so because they want to fit an image of what looks healthy. Okay, so based on this story, there's no child that is born insecure. A lot of the times, 100% of the time actually, all of the insecurities that you have are taught. A child isn't born thinking that, oh, you have really shitty skin. That is something that is like instilled to you by society and the people around you. While like, it's a shitty thing to do to like body shame other people, those relatives. But in a way, you can't completely blame them because this was the social conditioning that they were also taught by society, by their relatives, by their parents, by their like grandparents and stuff like that. So you can't completely blame them because they didn't exactly have the capacity to unlearn the conditioning that was put onto them by society. Also, the thing is, a lot of the beauty standards that we have today are highly brought by colonialism. Like, for example, in the Philippines, we were colonized by the Spaniards. So, a lot of our beauty standards are highly based on like Eurocentric features, which is a common thing across Southeast Asian or like Asian countries in general, actually. In the Philippines, like the features that are deemed as pretty are like pale skin, having a pointy nose, basically like features that you would commonly see on white people. While it is tied towards race, it is also highly connected towards like socioeconomic status. Like in Korea, a beauty standard that they also have is in terms of pale skin. But the thing about Korea is the reason behind them like praising pale skin is because if you have pale skin, it means that you didn't have to like work out in the fields in the sun to become tan. And that is usually tied with your like socioeconomic status. Beauty standards, aside from being pushed on to by the patriarchy, it is also highly tied towards like colonialism, your socioeconomic status, and in a way the economy. In terms of how it is like tied to the economy, women's looks have been commodified by society. Basically, whatever sells well on print media or on digital media is basically what is going to be further deemed as attractive. So, since we operate under capitalism, yay! The thing about capitalism, society creates a problem and then they sell a solution for it. Let's say, for example, in society, the problem is acne. The way in which you frame acne as some sort of problem is by showing the ideal or what you should achieve. So here's the problem and here's the goal that you want to achieve, which is a clear skin, glass skin, or whatever. Now that idea is instilled to you via marketing, via billboards, via models, via Photoshop, it is now time for companies to be able to sell you some sort of product in order for you to fix that problem that you have. So whether that be like the different brands of skincare that you can use. On top of that, there are going to be like different kinds of like skin types. There's oily, there's combination skin tone, there's dry skin, sensitive skin. Basically showing the like plethora of options that you can choose from. In order for you to actually find out what is going to be effective to fix the problem of yours of acne, you would have to experiment with a bunch of these products to figure out what actually works. For you to experiment, you would have to spend more money. Another thing, which is it's tied to the whole socioeconomic status thing of since you are able to buy more expensive products or you have the capacity to experiment with different products, you're obviously going to be able to fit the beauty standard more. At some point, I did come to terms with how I looked, and I genuinely felt good about how I looked. I was very confident. I saw myself as pretty. I saw myself as beautiful. And the thing is, after I established internally that I was considered pretty, it started to reflect to other people. So other people also thought that I was pretty. It definitely has its perks. The thing is, for a little while, like around the time I was like 16 or like 15, 16. I remember it was like during my sort of later teen years. I sort of like relied on the fact that oh, I'm pretty. That is going to be the focal point of what people notice. Or like that's going to be the main focus of like who I am, basically. However, as time went on, sort of like felt empty. I felt like other traits that I had weren't exactly noticed. Or maybe it's like cognitive bias, wherein like since I mostly fixated on my looks for the most part, and my looks were like my priority in terms of how I would like improve myself or something, or like my looks are basically the most apparent characteristic about me. That's how I like perceived myself. I then like projected that onto other people and thought that that is the only thing that they saw of me. That was the main thing that they saw about me, was the fact that I was like physically pretty. As time went on, like I sort of just like adopted sort of like a bimbo personality, wherein like I was like the pretty one. So like I don't need to do anything because I'm pretty. It's like sort of I never said this out loud before, but like looking back, that was sort of like the mindset that I have. Like since I'm pretty, I'm able to compensate for certain bad traits that I would okay, not like bad traits like I'm an asshole, but like if ever I were to fall short of something, it would be okay because I had like my looks to back myself up. And like I sort of relied on like the halo effect of being conventionally attractive. That was like a weird thing. So like even though I finally felt good about the way that I look, I sort of got rid of my body insecurities, my body image improved, how I viewed my skin like sort of improved. It then became like the focal point of my identity. And it still left me feeling empty. And it still left me like feeling as though my self worth was highly tied to the way that I look. Then I was like, okay, then what? This is actually like not that fulfilling now that I think about it. The thing is, while I was always a smart person, I was considered like one of the nerds in a way, like one of the nerds. Ew, ew. I'm not like other girls. Like shut the fuck up anyways. But I was like the traditional like straight A student, very type A personality. I always got good grades. I was an honor student. I was competitive. I joined like competitions and stuff. So I was always considered like smart in a way. But when I like deemed myself as attractive, I sort of like forgot about that. Not necessarily forgot about that, but I thought that other people didn't necessarily notice that I was smart. Or if they did think that I was smart, it was because of the halo effect of since they think that I'm pretty, they then deem me as smart as well. So it's not necessarily like an independent factor of how they would evaluate my intelligence. Which brings me to my next topic in terms of the two phenomenons within the feminist movement, which is body positivity and body neutrality. I got inspiration from this from a debate motion that talks about like the feminist movement should prioritize body neutrality over body positivity, something like that. And basically, to define the two terms to those who aren't familiar with what they are, body positivity is basically the appreciation of the features that are deemed as unattractive in status quo. Basically, in status quo, what is deemed as attractive is basically pale skin, right? So the opposite of pale skin, which is quote unquote what is considered unattractive by society, is basically tan skin or darker skin. So, in terms of body positivity, it would be in terms of embracing like darker skin tones. Or it could also look like since being skinny is what is deemed as attractive in society. In contrast to body positivity, there is body neutrality. It's slightly newer than body positivity because body positivity was popularized a lot earlier. Body neutrality, on the other hand, is the acceptance of your body in terms of how it functions. Basically, viewing your body as a vessel rather than something that you have to see as attractive. The way that I view my body now is in terms of body neutrality, to where I don't exactly focus on trying to embrace my like skin asthma and rashes and like and stuff like that. It's more so viewing it in a way like my body is able to function properly. I have skin that is able to protect all of my inner organs and skeletal system. Honestly, it's a lot simpler to ingrain into your mindset rather than body positivity, where you have to like love every single feature that you have. Because with the constant conditioning by society and the constant reminder by society that certain features that you have are something that should be scrutinized and hated, it is easier to approach it with apathy rather than trying to love them. It requires more friction. Oh, I have to love these features even though my entire life, my parents, relatives, strangers, whoever has told me like they're ugly. In terms of body neutrality, I think that in terms of accepting your body for how it functions, how it functions within your day-to-day life, it is a lot more attainable in my opinion. Okay, so just for like a short segment at the end of this episode, I put a prompt on my story on Instagram. So if you want to check that out, feel free to follow me on Instagram. It will be in the description. But yes. Okay, so I put on my story a prompt that says, "What or when do you feel the most beautiful?" One person said that they feel the most beautiful when they're smiling because they're happy. That's adorable. Yes, you indeed look very beautiful when you smile. There are three entries here that are kind of similar to each other. One person said that it it is when they get a good selfie, and another person said when the light hits my face at the right angle when taking a picture. So both in terms of taking pictures of themselves. And then another person said when I start looking in the mirror and proceed to act like I'm thirst trapping. I've done that. I mean, no. I mean, it's a thirst trap, but the only audience is you. And that's the only audience you need. The thing I want to talk about is in terms of like the digital age, right? Nowadays, everybody sees themselves a little too much. Like, there is an immense amount of cameras. You can easily access a camera from your phone. You can like scroll through your own social media. You have a bunch of records of how you look like throughout the years from different angles and such. You're never supposed to look at yourself this intensely. Because back then, the only way that you would be able to see yourself is through a reflection, or through a reflection, either like in the water, like Narcissus, through a mirror, or in the age where there were cameras, you would have to get the film developed. So there would be like this additional step in order for you to be able to see yourself basically from a third person point of view. So that could possibly like be another thing that contributes to why insecurities are so rampant. Because you weren't supposed to fucking see yourself that often. I'm looking at myself in the fucking I'm looking at myself on my fucking laptop recording this for about an hour now. When do I feel the most beautiful? So that we end on a positive note. Usually, the times where I view myself as the most beautiful are actually before I take a shower. So, like, before I take a shower, when I take off all my clothes, I take off my glasses as well, so I can't see. Right now, actually, I don't have contacts in. I don't have glasses. So, if you see me squinting a lot at the camera, that's basically why. Because my contacts expired. Before I take a shower and I take off my glasses, I see myself in the mirror. Of course, before I take a shower, I like to check myself out in the mirror and stuff like that. I'm not hyper fixated on every blemish I have on my face. I am not like hyper aware of all of the imperfections that I have either on my body or on my face. I simply just like see myself in the mirror with like a blurry filter on before I take a shower, or like usually when I take a shower I play music and stuff, so I have like my Rihanna and my Beyonce playing and I jam out to that in the shower, and it makes me feel good. That's when I would say that's when I feel the most beautiful. And I think it's very fitting that I chose not to wear my glasses for this video, so that I guess so that I'm not like hyper fixated on the way that I look, because it feels very weird to be staring at myself for like an hour straight. I guess that's all for this podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what other topics you guys would like to hear on this podcast. I would also love to hear like your thoughts on beauty standards and what your own experiences are on this. Bye bye. Mwah.